Welcome back to Timeless. So this is the current deck build that we're going with here. We're running significantly more creatures than the last build. We're resolving a lot of early threats to deal with things. We still got Deathrite to aggro, we've got Voice for double body removal to deal with anything, Helix for the life swing and removal, Karvu because it can be an easy 5/5, Lazawa Lava Tongue as discussed in the short, really good Death Toucher which has an identical trigger that's easy to trigger off. We always get the trigger basically with Zawa. It's insane what you can do with this card. Bind to Secrecy is a good counter spell. Drown the Lock was great, but with Uros coming back it was draining it out. Ashiok's here to hate on fetch lands because of his static that everyone forgets about. It's really fun to go off with. Sideboard Veil, Cindervines to deal with cantrippy fast decks. Clothis for more graveyard, Leyline for graveyard, Slaughter Games, and begin anew. So that's the deck. Let's see how it goes. First opponent here is Chainus. Deck list will be below, by the way. I just don't want to spend too much time on it. We had a bit of a stall there. No blue mana, but this can cast pretty much most of the things in our hand, and we can get a really good Leyline Binding as required. Opponent cracks are flooded to begin with for Breeding Pool. We'll play a Triome. Polluted Delta comes down, we find another Niv, so we'll shock in so we can hold up either a Helix or a Binding depending on what our opponent plays. They play a Triome. They play a Breeding Pool tapped. End step, I'm going to Helix their face just to test them. They do have counter magic, it appears. So with the knowledge that they have counter magic, I'm going to put this into play tap so we can do double Leyline Binding if required. They Spiral, put a land into play tapped. They play an Uro, so with Uro on the stack, I'm going to Leyline Binding it. It just deals with it now since I don't have specific graveyard hate. They do get to ramp, play multiple lands. They have 2 mana here, so what I'm going to try and do is resolve a Teferi and hold up a Leyline Binding. It resolves, so we'll plus. I think they could have burn because they have red, so I don't want to deal with that. So we'll see what they do here. Play a second Uro. I'm going to let this one go to the graveyard, I think. They have 4 mana here. They go for an Oko. Oko can make free freeze every other turn, which is not too scary here. But what we're going to do is we're going to flash in Leyline, take him out, and we can resolve a Niv here out of nowhere. So Niv comes down, reloads us. So we get an Ashiok and a Voice because Ashiok can deal with a graveyard. I'm going to bounce to Fairy here because we only hit 3 off. Oh no, we didn't bounce, we just plussed. We're just going to buy time here. So let's see what our opponent's answer is to a Niv Mizzet. They have a Hydroid Crisis free. They pass the turn. I'm going to play a land here. I'm going to plus Teferi again because I can use Expressive Eviscerations at instant speed here. But I'm going to try for a Voice because if they counter the Ashiok here, we still get a token from this. Ashiok enters, or minus, mill them 4, exile their graveyard. That was annoying that it didn't show. But they have Wilderness Reclamation, so this is Wilderness Reclamation Nexus of Fate deck. But fortunately, Teferi is really good at shutting down the Nexus's untap ability for super quick. So they Cyclonic Rift Teferi back to our hand, they Oko, make a food. Well, I'm going to here, they could have counter magic, so what I'm going to do is just try to replay Teferi here, see if they play into it. They counterspell it, giving us a token, totally okay with that. We'll Ashiok, get rid of more of their deck here. We'll attack with Niv and the Voice here. Actually no, we'll just attack with Niv on Oko, so do they want to save their Oko? They do. They crack a fetch land into an Ashiok, which always feels great because they forget that he has that ability. They Elk our Niv. They Explosion and draw 3 and Dome Ashiok. So we're going to Expressive Iteration here. put a Death Right into hand as Graveyard Hate, put that into bottom, put Steam Vents into the play. Play that out shocked. Go to combat. We'll hit everything on the Oko here. And then we'll just play a Death Right. Well, do we play Death Right here? We can't do a land drop, so we'll just play a Death Right and play another Expressive, look for an answer. We'll put Oro into hand. We'll exile a Triome, sadly, we won't get to use it. Opponent plays a tap land. The Explosion to kill our voice, but that just makes us another token that makes it bigger. We get Zawa and they concede before that. This is what I said about adding more creatures to the deck. We add Slaughter Games to deal with the Pact if needed. Helix isn't going to do anything, they're not really good, but we'll add Cindervines because that can also incidentally explode their Wilderness Reclamations. This is what I mean about the current meta. If you can resolve good resilient threats, it's really good. Like you saw there, the voice, they had to spend, I believe it was 6 mana to kill a Voice of Resurgence. We're going to mulligan that because it doesn't do too much, but here's a good hand. So, sorry Zawa, you're going to have to go, because we don't have black mana. So we play Sparta's Headquarters, and we could shock in a Steam Vents for a 4/4 Carvery next turn. Oh, but we do get a Blood Crypt, so that's a 5/5, so that's great with no fetch lands. So we play a 5 mana 2/2. No, sorry, wrong way around. Our opponent Growth Spirals. They're on the good ramp here. They use Fading Hope to return Carvery to our hand. It's quite interesting. We find a Cindervines here. So I'm going to just start with an Uro. We'll get another land drop ourselves. We'll play a Triome. We now have all our colours sorted here, so we should be able to Growth Spiral from our opponent. They don't mid a land drop, so let's redeploy the Carvu here. There's no action from them, so what I'm going to do is play the Swamp, and I'm going to play Cindervines. See if this prompts anything else. So they do have another bounce spell, but Cindervines is on the field, and we're going to hold up 1 mana in case they attempt to cast their Wilderness Reclamation, and we'll start doming them every time they play a land. They play the Hall of Storm Giants. Let's redeploy our Carvu again. Let's Expressive Iteration. Put a Carvu into hand. That into hand, put that on the bottom. Still holding up a mana in case they go for an end of turn Wilderness Reclamation, untap, cast a Nexus of Fate. They bounce our Carvu again. They're reading our Cindervines here. They play a Hydroid Crisis for 4. They are tapped out here, so on our turn we're going to play a Carvu, play a Teferi. We'll return the Carvu to hand here. We'll play another Carvu, so we now have 10 power on the board. Let's see if they tap out again to recast their Crisis. They don't. They go for an Uro. They're on 19. They can recast an Uro here by exiling their entire grave, well, most of their graveyard. We get another Teferi here, so this is perfect. So let's plus Teferi, play Mizzet, see if we find a more resilient answer to Oko. I choose Binder's Secrecy here, I think, because I want a counterspell if they go for it. We redeploy Teferi, bounce the Uro to their hand, swing in with the Carvus. We'll exile their graveyard here to prevent them from getting any more Uros out. Puts them down to 11. They need a board wipe or mass bounce here to stay alive. They go for Wilderness Reclamation. Untap. They can't cast anything at instant speed. They probably have a way here to get something out, but they ultimately concede because they suddenly realize they can't cast at instant speed. So that was a good showing of our deck here. We're moving to our next match. As you can see, resolving a lot of what I like about this version of the deck is resolving a threat is incidentally way more important in this format. because I think a lot of people are blindsided by how powerful certain answers are, and they're just not a fan of running better equipment. So, with no red in hand, I'm going to put away the Lightning Helix. I'm going to shock in here and get a Shaman down in case they are a graveyard deck. They appear to be blue-black, so they could be control-based. I'm going to play a Sparta's Headquarters and swing in with a Deathrite, see what they do. They play a Lotus Field, and they use a Tail's End to end the turn. Interesting. So, with that in mind, let's get our red mana sorted. So we're going to shock in a Stomping Ground. Get a 5/5 Carvu on the field. I'm not going to attack here because I can exile their spell to drain them for 2, which is more efficient than hitting them down. So let's exile Tail's End. We have a Leyline Binding here, so let's play a land, swing in with the Carvu. We'll exile up to 1 card. I will not exile from our graveyard. Puts them down to 12. I'm going to use the Expressive Iteration because we still have the binding for whatever they try to do. So let's put Helix into hand and Helix into exile. Opponent has a ton of mana. They're Esper control here. They play a and they play a Sword of Fire and Ice. So this is kind of an Esper Delver. So in response, we will leyline the creature. We'll exile our own card to drain them for 2, put them down to 10. Swing in with the Territorial Carvu. Again, we will not exile our graveyard. Hits them down to 5, play the game tapped. With the 4 mana, we're going to exile a land here to get 5 mana to cast Mizzet.
Reload!
So we can get some more damage, and our opponent concedes because they don't have an answer. That was a really strong start against our opponent, so they appear to be a kind of Esper Delver deck. They want to resolve a threat, or maybe they're Esper Fairies. So with that in mind, these come out. Yes. Right, our new hand is interesting. They could be a Stifle deck as well. Stifle has become... Oh, yes, they definitely are. With that Pixie there, it's pretty obvious here that they are a Esper Fairies list, which is an interesting build. So we'll start with a Bant Triumph. I'm going to shock in here. I'm going to play a Deathrite, see if that warrants any response. Because we can still Leyline Binding if they attempt to do a Sword Equip or anything. They don't, so we'll pass back. Play a Wooded Foothills, we'll crack it, see what our opponent does. They do have the Stifle. So then we'll play a Cindervines there, and we'll hold back our Deathrite. They play the Dreaming Duelist, which causes us to lose a life every time. So let's exile one of our lands. We'll add white, flash in the Leyline Binding, and we'll get rid of this because of its incidental drain. They have a Stifle here. So now, with that resolved, they have only 1 card left in hand. We will start with a Helix to gain 3 life back from that. And then we won't do anything. They play a Sword of Fire and Ice. They move to equip, so we'll use the second ability on Cindervines to blow up the sword so they can't gain any card advantage. Then we'll go to our turn, play a land, crack it. We could resolve a Niv here or a Teferi here, because we have fetch lands in the graveyard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap all these to see what I need, then I'll get rid of a fetch land to get the black and add a
Reload!
Niv Mizzet. We will reload, back up to 7, our opponent has no cards in hand, and they concede. Cool list. Very old school fairy list that was modern, where they try to resolve a fairy and get a sword in it. I'm guessing they're running Bitter Blossom, but I didn't really see it in the deck. And I did not effectively edit this part of the video for some reason. I've also just recorded the audio for this, which means it's going to be incidentally a bit longer. But, you know, it's late and I wanted to get these done before Christmas. Alright, opponent. Massacre Girl, that looks like there. So they're going to shock in and play a Deathrite, see what our opponent does. They play a land tapped. Alright, so with that in mind, let's play this, crack it. We'll grab a Triumph. Now you might be asking why we're not ramping out to Uro here. We want to keep cards in our graveyard to cast Uro, but we want to see what our opponent's doing with their turn. So we'll play a land here. I'm going to swing, I'm going to hold, because I'm pretty sure this must be control based deck. And if I wait one more turn, I could Uro with a counterspell backup. But we'll see what they do. So they brainstorm. So they appear to be free color. They cast an Uro. So they draw a card, play a land. They don't seem to realize that I can just exile Uro. So I'm going to do that and gain 2 life. I'll shock this in and then I'll play my Uro, which will draw me a card. I'll play this land untapped, sorry, because I'm going to hold back. I want black to exile stuff from their graveyard as we go forward. They don't appear to have anything, so they pass back with all their mana open. So let's exile their card and keep their graveyard under control. Play a land, and we'll try to resolve it to Fairy, holding up a counterspell to deal with it if they try for it. Unless they have a veto effect. They have a counter spell, so we're going to try and counter that with our counter. See what their second response is. They have a memory lapse, which puts it back on top of our deck. So we can't resolve, sadly, a Teferi. We'll hit in. Teferi's coming next turn, so they must hold up counter magic, basically. Unless they want it to resolve. Narset comes down, they dig. They find a sword to plowshares. Sorry, we're gonna Leyline Binding. I forgot that they put Bind to Secrecy on it, not the other one. I got distracted with the counters there. There's 2 cards in the graveyard, so we're just gonna keep policing it. Basically, they're gonna have to probably use that sword to answer a mana dork, because basically Deathrite Shaman is truly the 1 mana planeswalker. Yep, there's a Teferi, so we're going to Bind to Secrecy that. Sadly, we didn't have enough to conjure a spell. So let's cycle with the land here, see what we find. There's nothing we can get from the graveyard. I was trying to find something quick. I'm going to cycle again. Find another land. We got a Helix to deal with anything that they try to play out. But we, incidentally, again, we're light on threats. This is truly where things seem to go a bit pear-shaped for these decks. Is we just need to get threats on the table. So let's just shock them here, see if they respond. It's also another card in our graveyard for Uro next turn. Alright, we're going to just try and cast an Uro here. And it resolves, so we draw a card. Play a card tapped, we have a Leyline Binding if they have anything for it. I do spam the Your Go fairly frequently. Yep. Oh, this is actually an opponent running an efficient abandonment removal. Alright, so we play another tap land here. My word, come on game. Karvu, that's great. So we try to cast a Karvu. They Sinister Sabotage it, that's okay. Another card in the graveyard to cast Uro if we can find it. They try to cast their Uro, so before that we will attempt to Leyline Binding it. They have another counterspell. That's fine. We get another Leyline Binding in our hand. They play a land. They get their Uro back. Here you can see them going through their graveyard. So before they draw a card here, we will Leyline Binding again. Get rid of that so they don't have any threats. Play a land, pass back. Pass back with a Bloodstained Maya. Whoo-wee. Okay, this is why I spam emotes. What is the complicated thing about your control player? There's two possibilities here. Two counter spells, or a Uro-like style threat. You have enough mana to probably cast both. Oh look, you played a land, so you only truly had one decision there. Why the hell did it take you so long? Right, Expressive Iteration, let's see if we can find anything. Voice of Resurgence into our hand. Land to the bottom, Expressive Iteration to exile. We're going to play a voice. We're going to get Uro from the graveyard, exiling 5 cards. If they try to counter this, we at least get another creature. They go for the swords, that's fine, gives us another creature, another threat. We find a Zawa, we'll play that because that will trigger. Oh wait, it won't trigger because it exiled. So we swing in here, pass the turn. I'm not going to deploy the Carvu because if they get another verdict like I suspected, it'll get blown up. We'll just play a Carvu now, play another Deathrite. We've got a 3/3, hit them down. They play Wilderness Reclamation, so it's another Sultai control deck. We will go to combat, hit them for 8 here, exile a card from their graveyard. We're just going to keep grinding out. Keep their graveyard under control. We'll keep the Deathrite activation depending on what they do here. We'll Leyline Binding, take out the Wilderness, and our opponent concedes. So another Cindervines is very quickly gonna probably become a main board card if the meta doesn't shift soon. Probably not a full play set like I'm running here. But the amount of Wilderness Reclamations, the amount of just incidental tap, like, you know, people are running insane amount of, people are running spells that aren't, it's as weird as it sounds, as not as powerful as standard. Sorry, not as powerful is not the right word, not as efficiently spread removal as standard. So right now people are running, I'm running 16 counterspells, I'm sure that like that'll be fine, and 2 sweepers. Oh wait, he's resolved 2 creatures, I can't deal with them. And if you think that's exaggeration, just we'll see as games go on here. We'll play a Triome, our opponent shocks it, plays a Hallowed Fountain. Now, this is one where I can kind of understand it in hindsight. They are probably thinking about a brainstorm thing here. Oh no, they're just shocking the land and pass back. So we'll just play a land here, go for Cindervines. If they want to counter this, then that just gives us another fodder for Uro later. Yep, they have the Jawari Disruption. Play a land, pass back. We'll shock a land in here. We'll play a Voice of Resurgence, see if that resolves. Again, if they just want to keep countering it, it's more fodder for our Uro here. Against this deck, if we resolve it to Fairy, I think it's pretty much over for them. We're going to grab an Endalpha Triome that covers all our land types for Dominion. I'm thinking about board games. They pass back here. So, with our current hand shape, I'm going to just cast an Uro, because we can hold up a Leyline Binding if they try their Uro. Uro comes in, we draw a card, play a card untapped because we're going to play a Zoa. They're considering whether or not to counter this. And we get to the end step, we get the Descend trigger, so it's a lose 3 life. We pass back, we swing in with Zawa. Oh my god, look, what the hell you gotta do? Hello? This is why I spam. Like, what the hell have you gotta do? You got what? Counter spell, maybe a removal spell. You ain't gotta do nothing. Here we go. We play a Carvu. Our opponent uses Memory Lapse on the Carvu, so we just pass back. We haven't triggered a thing yet. I'm holding up Leyline because I'm expecting they've got an Uro in hand. We'll go to combat again, and they will again hold, so we'll just keep spamming that they need to hurry up and make a move. There we go, attack in. Redeploy a Carvu. They let it go. Again, we're not going to run out the Teferi here, because that's like the game winner for us. So we're going to swing in here. We're going to discard a card, and we're going to discard a Leyline Binding. That gives us a counterspell, but that also triggers Descend. So now we go to the end step. They've got to sack a permanent, discard a card, or lose 3 life. They don't want to go down to 1 here, because they can't crack fetch lands if they do, so they have to start sacking lands. Which, I will take that every day of the week. I'm going to counter their Memory Deluge, so they can't find anything, and they'll just concede. Again, you saw here, this is what a lot of the meta is currently built around. They are really efficient decks, but they just don't have the answers to a lot of threats. Hope you enjoyed it. Deck list below. We'll play more Timeless later.